All right, I think we are live. I think that this is the setup we need. I'm just going to close the door here because my dog just came in. Well, I'm going to close it a bit just so we don't get a bunch of outside noise outside the office. So I'm just going to close that. I'll be back in one sec. You going out? You staying in or... Come on. You're being a funny guy. All right. Thanks for tuning in. I know this is a weird time of day and all that kind of stuff. I'm probably not expecting a ton of views from people for this stream in particular, but I thought that maybe people would be interested in sort of watching the process of how I go about developing photographs and all those kind of things. So this is a show I shot on the weekend. This is Slayer, or I guess I'll start from the bottom. We'll go Testament, Bohemoth, Anthrax, Lamb of God, and Slayer. So I shot all 5 bands. I ended up working, not for the media outlet, but Lamb of God reached out to me, and essentially I ended up there. So there's no big rush on these photographs. Normally when I'm doing story stuff, I have them all edited and ready to go, you know, sort of that night. That wasn't necessary for this, so took my time, long weekend, all that kind of stuff. It probably won't go out till, you know, later in the week anyways. So this is one of Slayer's last shows. So essentially, we're going to show you what I do in Lightroom. I will say it was a bit of a challenging shoot. You can see already in the first photograph that's up on the screen that the lighting conditions, not terribly exciting. Lots of reds, lots of blues, all that kind of stuff. There were times in Anthrax and Slayer as well that, you know, sort of lights came on. You have to take those sort of opportunities when they come. All this shot with a Canon 5D Mark III. And if you are watching, by all means, throw some stuff in the chat. If you are a photographer and you have questions, and even if you're not, by all means, ask questions away. You know, essentially, you know, that helps me prompt, you know, me to sort of talk a bit. So I'm just going to jump right into it. And it's going to be a bit weird for me too, because usually I have a 2-monitor setup. So what I have is the screen that you see on the site there, and then I have another screen below which is much larger, so when I do things like zoom in so I can see if we've got focus or not, I'm actually looking at it down here so I can see the full image up top. And so this is just gonna change my workflow a tiny little bit. So yeah, it's so first off, we've got Testament, as you can probably tell by the little wristbands and stuff like that. As you can see, even though it's blue light and it's dark, we've got some pretty bad hot spots in here. Now, a lot of times, you know, sometimes with certain images and certain colors, you can do things, and I'm just going to quickly color pick, which would be a neutral color, which would be his face. A lot of times that will change it. And I'm just going to undo that. I'm going to command click a lot, so by all means, if you're wondering what I'm doing, just ask. So there's not a lot you can do with sort of this monochrome. What you have is sort of tonal stuff, so you can go sepia, cyan, cream tones, or you can go black and whites. And I just kind of generally browse in this window. I'll kind of get a starting zone. This is not exactly where, you know, I want it to be, because to me that is way too bright. I like how the background looks, but I'm not so keen on how the foreground looks. And that is way too dark, although I do kind of like the darker contrast. It's more representative of what's going on. So just so you know, some things that I don't like to do. I don't like to crop typically. I like to get things right in camera. I don't like to edit a ton. But, you know, in a sense, you know, it's sometimes you have to make those little bits of adjustment just to make it a little bit of a better image. So this one I am definitely going to crop a little bit. If we go in there, we are going to basically, I'm going to drop the highlights just a little bit. I'm going to boost the shadows a tiny tad, and we're going to darken those blacks. I like really contrasty stuff, so, you know, that's probably where I just really want that to be, and really that's how simple. And excuse me for 1 second as I crack this open. Cheers. This is not beer, this is just Diet Coke. So, yeah, you know, as far as things go, not you know, a decent shot. We've got good, you know, focus on the face. We've got, you know, a good shot of him in the mic stand. We're at the right angle, and the other side we would cut off the face. So all kind of good. You know, it would have been nice if maybe a little more of a power stance, all those kind of things. So, but overall, not bad. And then moving on, of course, we've got the guitarist. Again, we're in focus here, and this might show a little better what I mean. So you can see we sort of get the skin tones back there in doing that. But you can see the challenge of the lighting here. Well, he is pretty much in a decent exposure range. All this kind of stuff, like you can see the highlights are just burnt in there. Not the best. So again, you know, we will pick a starting point. Typically I start in 5. And then I just sort of work it from there. So I want to darken that down. I want to kind of kill those highlights a bit. And that's kind of, I think, where we sort of want to be. So things that I will do, and we can just, you know, there is noise in there. A little bit of noise. We can throw some noise reduction. I always don't do terribly a lot of that because what happens is it starts to get silky smooth. And what you see with, you know, sort of amateur concert photographers and all that kind of stuff when they edit photographs, when they have a bad shot, and when I mean a bad shot that it's not properly exposed, a lot of times they will try to bring it back from the dead. They will use the basically the clarity key, and they will use the sharpen key as well to essentially get things going. So, and as well as they'll take out the noise, because the noise is something that you hear photographers talk about a lot. You hear people talk about, well, it introduced a lot of noise. This ISO would introduce a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise. You can see the the specs. And you do see it. You will see little specks in the photograph. It is digital noise. It's not perfectly sharp, you know, all those kind of things. So people will, you know, kind of, you know, noise reduce to the point of fault. So I've seen it kind of where guys have, you know, things like wrinkles, where they become perfectly smooth. They look like they've had plastic surgery. Not my style, not terribly what I would call cool. So moving onward. Again, we got a nice looking right at the camera, good face. Again, you know, the lighting challenging, all that kind of stuff. Again, I'll show you, like, I won't be able to recover this, but if we pick a skin tone, you know, again, the lighting, it just changes. But I mean, obviously the lights are of such a nature in this shoot that, you know, black and white, or, you know, kind of these sepia tones, which look kind of cool. I don't use them a lot because there was once upon a time that everybody used those kind of things. I am more, I kind of like to be in these ranges, like not so sepia, but for our case, we're going to go black and white strictly. So we're going to boost the shadows a bit. I just want to brighten up his look a bit. We're going to take the highlights down just a tad, and we're going to jump up those blacks again. Again, you've got, it's sort of a balance, right? You can go too dark. You can definitely be way too light, like a lot of people will expose up here. I don't like that. It's not what was seen at the time. So, you know, again, decent. And you can see what exactly I'm talking about. You see all this grain in the background is essentially noise. And I'm hoping this computer doesn't automatically shut down because it is a warm day and it is working a little bit of overtime. So, but you can see sort of how the noise and the speckle is there. I'm not honestly really concerned about that. I'm not concerned about, you know, sort of this digital noise that is kicking around. I'm not terribly worried about it. And why I'm not worried about it is, number one is that any other photographer that is there is shooting in the same lighting conditions. Generally speaking, if they're traveling with a light show as well, you're getting a light show across every single, you know, sort of venue they go to. It's going to kind of be the same thing. You know, so the shooting conditions are very similar. The lighting patterns for the songs that you're out there are always very similar. So you're just trying to capture the best that you can in those times. And like I said, I mean, built into those, there are times where they will have, you know, white light, you have good color, all that kind of stuff. And you got to hope that, number one, the action is at the right time, and, you know, sort of that lighting is at the right time, and you're in the right place at the right time. So moving on and forward. So this is just kind of the same shot. I kind of don't know, and that's obviously just a banging shot. I don't particularly like that one, so we're gonna get rid of that. I think I kind of like it as a GIF one too. So, but that being said, I do kind of like this shot more. And this one, no, it's still pretty unrecoverable in those regards. Well, maybe not. I mean, it's still very orangey purple. And you can see, again, like these highlights are completely blown out. There's nothing that can be done about that. Like, the exposure on him is what you're going for. The background is not what you're doing, but sometimes that light messes everything up in a photograph. So again, you can see pretty much I'm always in the blacks. I'm going to drop the highlights down. He's still really kind of orange for my liking. But because that background is so blue, it kind of brings out the blue. So there you go. You see the noise is not so noticeable in this shot, which is nice because the light changed a little bit in just that second. And that's kind of the thing. Sounds like my dog... My dog is not too happy. I don't know if you can hear that in the background. Some stuff going on. But generally speaking, and we're just going to boost clarity. I don't like a lot of, and what I was saying before about clarity, like, people will pump that up and it starts to get like weirdly kind of looking, right? It's almost too much. I don't mind a little bit, but not too much. Shadows, I'm not gonna, you know, it's this light I don't like, but there's, like I said, there is absolutely nothing that I can do about that. So, but I like the shot. I like the face looking good. So again, you know, there's not much that can be done skin tone wise here. If we do that pick, see, it just changes that. So again, we're going for a black and white look. Typically 5 is where I start. I'll just cut down the highlights. We will bump up those blacks, like a nice contrasty dark image. And there you go. And again, you know, more the important thing is here is that, you know, you're paying attention to what's going on. If you are shooting things like concerts, you do miss focus. I had a couple shots that were out of focus. They're done. It's, you know, that's simply it. So, I mean, if this stuff is not in focus, I wouldn't use the shot, no matter what it is. It's just kind of, you know, that. But, I mean, we've got some great, you know, contrast going on. I absolutely love the look of that guitar, how it turns out in black and white and all that kind of stuff. It's just really kind of good look to it. You know, again, I love, you know, really kind of hard power poses and all that kind of stuff. I mean, but I mean, I like this shot. So moving on, moving forward. And again, like I said, the kind of issues that I've had through this entire show is things like this. It's, you know, we've got some weird split lighting here. So we've got red. We've got the complete blue. It doesn't matter what I do color-wise. I'm never going to get it look normal color because it wasn't normal color. I think it's interesting that people really, you know, sort of struggle with that. I mean, would I leave it as a blue image? No, because I don't like the blue contrast. I don't like the red contrast. Some people leave them as reds and blues. I don't think they are the best looking photos that way. And again, you know, sort of that antique-y look. I don't mind that as sort of a look. And we can definitely, again, you know, I'm going to go and contrast it up. Actually, in this case, I'm going to bump the contrast the other way because this particular preset likes to go the other way. It likes to kind of wash it out. But again, I like very, very stark contrast. I'm not doing terribly a lot. You notice this. You know, a lot of people, mistakes that they make, they will take these images, they will go into Photoshop, they will, you know, manipulate them to, you know, to the end of the world, and that's kind of what they do. To me, that's too much. And again, you know, I kind of like this shot because we have him in the background. We've got some of the background from the Testament stuff. You know, it's a good pose for him. This is what he likes to do, put his foot up in the monitor, all those kind of things, you know, so super, super cool. I'm just going to grab the door for 1 minute. Oh, no, I'm not. There's a dog on the ground, so I have to leave that open. If you are in the chat, I see there's about 3 or 4 of you in there. By all means, have questions, you know, comments, all that kind of stuff. By all means, shoot it in there. And again, you notice, as I've been doing this, as we're going through the photographs, I'm not really cropping. I've cropped one photograph. You can do that. In this case, I would probably crop it about somewhere about there. I think would make it a slightly better look, but I don't want to crop too much. Essentially, you know, and you've got to think about endgame where it's going. If it's going online, it doesn't matter terribly much, you know, but if you are going to blow it up, you know, to any kind of size, you know, or print it in those ways, you're going to need to make sure that you're not, you know, super cropping stuff. Otherwise, you know, you're going to have a big problem. But overall, I like it. I like the look. So again, similar problems. This, where's focus? Oh, he's fine. And that's the problem with me needing glasses. He's pretty good. Again, you know, fist in the air kind of thing. This one might be a little more recoverable color-wise if I wanted to leave it as a color. But even that, it's kind of pushed to the extremes there, you know. Yeah, it's really not savable, so we're going to undo all that. And we're going to go back to our black and white. We're going to go with something dark. Again, you're going to see the introduction of noise. I'm not terribly worried about it. All this kind of stuff is sharp, so that is good. I'm going to boost the shadows a bit in this just to give a little bit of a more contrast. You want to kind of see that hair line. I don't want it to get, you know, sort of washed out like the armband is, which is black on black. You know, you have a hard time sometimes, especially with metal acts. You know, they will have a lot of black clothing, and, you know, the lighting isn't the greatest. So again, I like this shot for what it is. I'm going to crop this one. So, and I'm going to adjust it. Mainly because it looks a little crooked. While the stage might be crooked, I'm probably off at a little bit of an angle. There's probably somebody here, essentially, and I'm just, you know, kind of adjusting for that. I do kind of like it to be somewhat straighter. Granted, this is not a perfectly flat horizon, and I am shooting on an angle, so we're going to utilize that. Again, nothing I can do color-wise, but black and white-wise, I can definitely do something. I don't know where I want to start with this one. I'm thinking kind of there. Again, I'm going to darken it up. I'm going to drop the exposure down, definitely. So when you're exposing in concerts, and when you're shooting photographs and concerts. Some of the things that I kind of pay attention to is, number one is you definitely kind of want to be in a zone where you can recover lights and darks. If you push it too dark, obviously you're going to lose. You're not going to be able to gain some of that information back. On the other end of things, it's bad if you overexpose. I like to be kind of a little bit higher because it's easier, I find, to kick the colors down rather than, or kick the contrast, up rather than, trying to gain from, sort of the shadows. So, I kind of like to shoot sometimes maybe a little bit to the overexposed side, but again, you have to be careful because if you are blowing out the highlights, if you have the highlights going on and all that kind of stuff to the point that they're burnt in, you are going to be in a massive amount of trouble. So I'm going to drop the highlights down there. Again, great face, kind of, he's got the hand going. He's just ripped off a nice cord. And yeah. And again, you do have the options to crop, so the image looks completely different. I don't like that at all. If I were to, something like that is actually kind of cool. But again, you're doing, that's a massive crop, and you're not going to be able to blow that up very, very much. So again, this is going to have to be cropped in a line just because, and this is what I like here. If you notice the grid line sort of across by his feet as it goes across here. So when I click and activate the grid, you just want to make sure that you are in fact there. Again, not terribly a lot you can do color-wise, because if I click on there, it's just going to, there you go, yellow it up, all that kind of stuff. But again, like I said, you're just capturing essentially what is there. So that introduced a lot of noise. I think that preset actually has add grain, so that grain, okay, I will undo that. So you see this grain, sometimes people actually do want that photo grain. I don't, and it makes a difference. I haven't sharpened the image, and you can see that there's not actually a lot of noise. And the ISO we're at here, we're about 3200. I think I shot most of the show at 3200. I think I dropped to 16 for a bit and then back up to 32. But essentially, that's where we're at. So again, I'm not a big crop guy, but in this case, because I had to shoot a little bit of an angle, I want to straighten that up. So then we get to that point. And again, this is kind of too light for me. See, I like to start kind of with the darker images, most definitely. I like the contrast is kind of where I come from, philosophical wise. I probably could crop this a little bit more, essentially take out a little bit more of that front speaker and sort of center him there. Although to me, the light above him is a little more important. So not bad. I don't mind that as a shot. Gonna drop the highlights maybe. And again, we're just sort of, I don't want the shadows as much. So there we go. It's, again, really, really basic. I just can't sort of stress enough how important it is to get things right in camera. So if you're shooting, pretty close to what you need to be in camera, you're not going to do a lot of adjustments. Again, those presets, they're not really changing a lot. It's basically, kicking out the saturation is starting from dark or light, changes a little bit of the contrast, all that kind of stuff on a simple click. I'll show you, sort of how to do that yourself. But generally, I just do this for speed. Generally, I'm not jammering along as I do this. I would probably be actually fairly close to done. Again, a great face here. I think that's why I like this shot. Again, the blue, so we're gonna have to go. So I said I would do that. So first thing you do is you do the saturation down, right? We're gonna bump up the exposure just a little bit, and then we are going to bump up the shadows. You know what, just for speed's sake, because I don't want to do the tone curves. So there we go, where we want to be. Again, a little bit of grain introduced there. That's just because of that part of the preset, so we'll take that out. You can still see a bit of noise. And again, don't be afraid of noise. Don't feel that you have to go up there. And you haven't seen me do this. Is once you start pulling out the noise reduction, you're going to see it here when the computer does it. You see how it gets kind of that weirdly smooth kind of look? It's just too much for me. I like having that raw, gritty kind of look. So if you are watching the stream, have questions, by all means, sort of jump in there. Again, here I could crop maybe a little bit, but, it's not terribly a lot. I do things that I like to do when I shoot, is I like to keep the microphone stands if they're in. I also like, when you're shooting guitars, you want to shoot the entire guitar. You want to make sure you're getting the feed. I don't like cutting off stuff a lot of the time. That is just me and what I like stylistically wise. So I think we're pretty good there. I'm going to darken that up just a little bit more. Like I said, I like that kind of contrasty kind of look. I love that face. That face is awesome. It's what makes the photograph to me. So we go. So we're back to this pose again. No, I don't like it. Go on. Okay, so again, you can see how weird the light is. It's extremely bright, possibility there. So we're going to basically jump into about there. Again, the grain is going to be introduced here. We're just going to take that right down. And that's nothing more than essentially, dealing with that preset. So I'm going to darken stuff up. Again, I like the contrast. We're going to move that contrast up a bit more. That's too much. Kind of. You want good darks, but you want, sort of a little bit of detail there. Again, by all means, throw comments, questions. Let me know you're in here. All that kind of stuff. So we're editing photos from Slayer, Lamb of God, Testament, Behemoth, and Slayer. I think I said Slayer twice. But essentially, this is Testament. They were the first act of the night, so we've got a lot of photos to go through to get to our final goal. Again, kind of cool. I like the action with the hair in here. I like the fact that they're, sort of dueling guitars. Again, victim of the light. There's nothing I'm going to do to save the color in this. It would be really cool if these guys were well lit and the background was that. But what we can do is definitely, sort of save this image. I just want to take a little bit. Now, again, like I said, don't crank that up. You just want it kind of just enough to take a little bit of that edge off. And again, not a fan of the crop, but in this case I'm going to crop just a tiny little bit. Just find the space at the bottom is nothing more than, sort of black space. again, we're looking for the sharpness of the image. You don't want to use anything that is out of focus kind of thing. I'm going to bump those shadows up a bit. And there we go. Simple as that. Not sure which one you prefer as a camera angle, looking at the top of my head or looking at the side of my head. I'm not sure. So we'll leave it like that. Yeah, not necessarily a fan of that image. It's kind of cool, but again, like I wish there was a way we could recover those colors, but it's not going to happen. And we're just going to go this route again. There's a fair bit of noise in there. In this one, I will use a bit of noise reduction. But I do kind of like this shot. I like the hair. I kind of wish there was a little tiny bit more. Just kind of getting that balance. And then when you get to things like this, it's sort of just choice. Both similar shots. Both in focus. This one's kind of cool because you've got the wave Harry just turned from there. And that one I kind of like because he's a little more majestic looking. I think it's a better facial expression a little bit. Just a little more flattering of an angle. I would use either one of those. We're just going to jump through some of these. Okay, we're on to Behemoth now. Now again, this a challenging shoot in the sense that the lighting not necessarily the best at times. However, that being said, there were times like this. And this here, if we take a look at the skin color, that's when you can, start doing those kind of things and definitely messing with the temperature a little bit to get a better kind of color. I definitely like them on the warm side. I will also deal with like saturation a little bit and then, kind of tone those back as well. So I'm just going to show you what I did there. If we leave this here and as we sort of give it a little bit more saturation because I want those colors in the background, you notice that especially the skin becomes very, very orange, which is not necessarily desirable. So what I will do is actually I'll dial back the color temperature just a tiny little bit and leave the saturation. You keep a lot more of the color, but essentially and that's what I mean about getting things right in camera as well. Right here is a perfect example of that. There's no change in anything. It's that's the image. It's just a little bit of, you know, kind of saturation, a little bit of color adjustment, and that's it. But I really like this kind of, you know, this look. I think I like this shot, you know. So again, you have a couple different things. So here, you know, what are we looking at? We're looking at, okay, so even though this was the first one that I sort of edited, here's a good example of, you know, making selection. So, I mean, we've got, this is kind of the series, but I mean, is it that facial expression or that facial expression? I mean, both are good. I don't know. Color there is red. Higher arm. I think I like this one just a tad bit better. So I'm going to do a couple things different with this one. I'm going to punch it up a bit. I'm going to get the blacks going. Again, I'm going to play with the skin tone a little bit. I'm going to kind of want to be there. And the vibrance, we've got the lights, all that kind of stuff. I like that shot. I really do like that shot. And again, not a fan of the crop, but we're going to crop it just to make it that little bit better. Again, focus the details. It's cool. You can see his little skull kind of necklace that he's got going on. All these things I didn't notice at the show, but this is what I love about photography. And later, we're going to reduce the noise a tiny, tiny little bit. Just to kind of smooth things out a fraction. It's not tons, but it's enough. Like I said, like that shot. This I wanted a shot going straight forward, and this, you know, is sometimes things that don't work out. It's a big mic stand. I wish they would kind of have the microphone lower, but he's not going to be concerned about that visually wise. You know, or if I was like a foot taller, it would work out much, much better. Again, we've got, you know, now we're in the red zone. Again, we got to kind of go this route because we're not going to really save that image much wise otherwise. So again, you just got to kind of play with it. You know when you got to do your blacks and whites. So again, you can see how difficult it can be, and this is framed poorly. You know, and I'm not even going to be able to save this, but I think it's a good example of sometimes, you know, within a second, you go from good exposure to really kind of crappy exposure. Again, you know, more worried about focus, which is not bad. This is going to be all blown out completely. There's nothing I'm going to be able to do except make it black and white and sort of play with the darks, the highlights, the shadows a bit up. And again, you know, it's all right. It's not my favorite image in the world, but, you know, same sort of thing. Same sort of thing here. You know, again, we're going to go black and white. We're going to jump those blacks up a bit. We're going to jump up those shadows. We're going to knock down the highlights to get a little bit more of contrasty. Kind of where we want to be exposure-wise. You see our exposure here, you know. So you at a full step down, it's underexposed. To where we are probably in the best zone, you know, a step up. It's getting way too light. In my opinion, there's just not enough contrast, although you could bump up the contrast hugely. It just looks washed. Again, we're going to want to take care of a little bit of that noise. All right. Let's see what else we have. Kind of like that image. Again, we're going to have to go black and white, except he's really dark. You know, it's like really bumping up the shadows there. And I think that's where we kind of want to be. Like I said, it's a bit of a balance game between, you know, sort of doing, you know, like I said, it's just sort of a balance game. You know, it's finding where you want the image to be. And that comes a lot with experience, what you like, what you find acceptable. Like, you know, like I said, grain. There's grain in that image, so I'm fine with that. But I mean, I can take a little bit out, which I have. You know, to me, it's fine. You know, interesting image to me, right? So, and you know, it comes down to taste and everything like that. You know, again, you can see the various lighting conditions that we do have in, you know, sort of the concert here. Sorry, just getting messages. Again, you know, I really wanted that shot. This one's not so bad. It's, I just don't like it because it looks like they have microphone face. It just would be a really cool aesthetic if I was Behemoth and visually I wanted stuff. I would probably have a little bit of a riser here to bring him up above. And have the microphone a little further down. But again, like I said, he's singing, he's performing. The important thing to him is, you know, sort of the art of it all. So, I mean, he's not going to be terribly worried about that stuff. Again, this is like kind of washed a bit. You know, we really got to kind of darken it up and kill those highlights a bit. It might just be a bit too washed, to be honest. I mean, the lighting is probably a bit better, but I can tell by the fact that this is exploding through, not what I was expecting. And again, you know, like we've got a lot of stuff. These are kind of cool. Uh-oh, got the ball going. What I don't like is I cut out the hand here. And in fact, I would probably edit this to look a little more purposefully like I meant to do that. And oh no, what's going on? something I was not supposed to. I press crop angle. I've had problems reading this photo. Interesting. So that's not a good thing when you start encountering errors like that. We just kind of want to be in that space. I don't know why it says that we've encountered those problems. The computer is definitely not enjoying the heat these days. I mean, that's kind of cool and creepy. I like that. You know, again, you can see some good detail in it, like, you know, with his medallions and stuff, his eyes. It's kind of very cinematic looking, really, when you look at it. It looks like it's out of a film, not a rock concert. If you just kind of take out that guitar for a minute, super cool. It's got a really good cinematic look to it. Again, rock concert, not a movie, but it just kind of really cool, and they have a really cool aesthetic to themselves. Hey, what's going on, Woodrow? Nice to see you in the stream. Thanks for tuning in. You are catching me editing a bunch of photographs from the weekend. So Slayer, Anthrax, Testament. Currently I'm editing Behemoth stuff, Lamb of God, all these guys. So this is, you know, just some of the shots that I have going on from that concert in particular. And again, I'm kind of really digging how that looks with that little bit of a tighter crop. In fact, I'm going to do that, I think, just to kind of get that look. And I don't usually like to crop that much, but in this case, I think is really kind of super deserving of that movie-esque kind of shot. I just really digging on that. Like I said, extremely challenging light for the show. You know, again, I wish I kind of broadened out and caught his fingers, but a big part of it was getting in close, and a lot of times too, probably just did not have the angle. Somebody was in there, and again, there's one of him. Looks like he's praying. Again, you know, these things, and that box is in the way is really super annoying, but. You know, if we crop that out, and just catch sort of the tip of it, that'll end up being a decent shot. Yeah, it was an interesting part of the show. Most of it was badly lit like this, but that portion, for whatever reason, lit up, and just some good shots out of it. Again, here, you know, what I'm concerned about is focus. As long as he's in focus, it's fine, which he is. And then from there, it's just sort of making those choices in black and white where I sort of want to occupy as a space. Again, a little bit of noise reduction. I kind of want to cut down the highlights here and bump up the blacks. I want to boost the shadows to kind of get his eyes back, but I can't get them too much or we'll kill the blacks as well. It's just kind of one of those shots. It's got a lot going on. That's the thing with the harsh contrast and lights in photography for concerts, is that you've got no control over it whatsoever. But again, you know, the end result, not terribly bad. I'm going through this again. You can see, you know, there's nothing you can do to save these. He's going to be red, so it's going to be a black and white image, or at least, you know, that kind of works a little bit for it as well. You know, and I'm definitely kind of crushing and adding some darkness around it, you know, to get sort of that contrast that I want. And there we go. It's that simple. So how's your day, Woodrow? Working hard, or do you have the day off, or? It's funny, last night, obviously you jumped in on the stream. We were streaming Conan last night. For whatever reason, which is kind of crazy, you know, these microphones turn off all the time. And when you're playing a game and you're not monitoring, even when I do the daily JD, if this microphone happens to turn off, I can't see it. Like right now, I'm sitting right at my desktop, so I can actually see the levels. But yeah, pretty funny. You guys rated totally unexpected and all that kind of stuff. I was wishing I had the day off too. It is a beautiful day outside, and I am here, you know, doing some editing to get these things out and done. So I'm going to whip through some of this stuff. And again, it's kind of going really slow. My computer is struggling with the heat a little bit. I think the video card is struggling. So we're on to Anthrax now. And it's just going to be a matter of sort of picking shots. I like that. I prefer full body, although I do want to crop that a bit. And these, because they're better lit, I mean, obviously, they're a little easier to deal with. Just going to kind of get that. I mean, it's incredible. You can kind of see all his tattoos there and all what he's got going on. You know, it's the thing when you've got good lighting and a sharp image, it's going to make a huge, huge difference. Actually, I will just kind of do this quickly, so medium and punch. That's, I think, kind of the space that we want to occupy. No grain. Definitely want to do a little bit of noise reduction, but I think not a bad shot. Ian definitely, you know, kind of one of the most recognizable faces from Anthrax. And that'll probably be the shot, you know, early on. It's easy to identify sometimes, you know, sort of what's going on and what shots you are going to use. Their bassist is awesome. Now, what do I want to use? Do I want to use that or that? There's a third one. And this is what makes it hard for you sometimes. Is sometimes there's 2 or 3 different images that you can utilize, and essentially you don't know where to go. Woodrow says that was pretty funny last night. We were just raiding away, lighting up the chat, and all we heard was Lloyd, which confused everyone. He was talking about Africa. Oh God. Yeah, well, that's Lloyd. Not exactly what I would call politically correct from time to time. I think he was talking about that because there is a huge like they've pulled all these animals like rhinos and elephants and all that kind of stuff into the game, and there is a huge slave trade part of that game where you enslave people, so it's a bit different, but definitely true to the Conan universe. I don't know which one I'm going to go with here. This is going to be a tough choice, and the thing is, the light is great in this. I kind of like that face, but I like that angle. So we're going to take that. if you're taking photos, Woodrow, I would honestly say that, and there's a good example of just quickly selecting for light, and actually Lightroom doing a really good job of color tone there. Typically, I pick the skin. I kind of want the skin. Usually, I'll get a ballpark and I'll adjust it, but in that case, it's bang on. Like, very little editing. I try to get everything that I can right in camera, so there's very, very little editing to do. It's just kind of a couple button clicks and that's it. I mean, and that's what you want to do. Essentially, Photoshop is usually when I go for more hardcore sort of manipulation in that sense, but generally speaking, because I am shooting live shots and all that kind of stuff, it's I want as best as I can out of camera, and I want it to be representative of what everybody saw that night. So, but yeah, I mean, I like that photo. I like that photo a lot. Lloyd definitely definitely has a different sense of humor, and definitely not everybody gets it all the time. Very sort of crass, lowbrow humor, and says what he says. That is most definitely Lloyd. So we're gonna medium and punch that. And again, these are fantastically fast edits. Some of these will go back later. That is, the focus is on Ian, but it's not good enough focus that I would keep that. However, this shot is where we want it to be. We've got info. Oh yeah, yeah. That's a keeper right there. And I mean, it's that kind of quick. The highlights a bit, get the black going. We're just going to do a little tiny bit of temperature, I think. It's a little too blue. Want a little bit. Nope, that's too much. Kind of want to be in that zone right there. Again, I think that's a keeper. Yeah, I think that's a great shot. It's... like I say, when you get things right in camera, it makes it really, really easy. When the lighting conditions are good, it's really, really easy. It's when you get these weird kind of color things, it's when you messes up your world. Again, like this one might be savable, but no, it's too light. So something like that, again, we would jump back to sort of the black and white look. I'm going to crush those blacks. Drop those highlights down a bit, and that's where I want to occupy. That's and this is how fast I edit photographs. I mean, I'm slow today because I'm essentially chit chatting with you guys and all that kind of stuff, and I'm kind of taking it a little bit easy. But yeah, I mean, that's how much time I spend on a photograph. When you are doing this stuff and you got to get stuff out fast, it's oh, I like that too. Man, their bassist is always so awesome. He's so photogenic for the stage. It's crazy. No, this isn't Edmonton. This is actually Calgary's Andy. This is from the Big Four the other night there. So that's what we're doing today. What kind of cam and accessories did you use for the show like this? So essentially, that's my setup right there, Woodrow. It's a Canon. Sorry, that camera's a little weird. It's a 5D Mark III. It's 24-70 L lens. So that's what I utilized. That was the lens I used most of the night. I also had a 70-200. I didn't switch out just because of the lighting and just because everybody generally was coming and moving around and pretty close. So that's what I use. 5D Mark III. I've not upgraded yet. At some point I will. There's no flash. You're not permitted flash in shows. You can't be blasting flash anyways in performers' eyes. That would really, really kind of suck. But yeah, I mean, back to sort of editing. Like I said, I like to kind of crush the blacks. I usually drop the highlights down so they're a little less harsh. This one, and again, you know, you'll fairly seldom ever see me kind of mess with the exposure button, because generally speaking, I'm kind of in there, but not always. So we'll reduce that noise. Again, done. You know, and I'm just sort of, man, he is so good. You know, all these shots. This one I would just kind of crop a little tiny bit. Probably to about there, just to kind of cut out the hot spot of the sun, but, or not the sun, but the spotlight. And again, I don't typically like to crop if I can at all do it. It just kind of saves it for later. But, you know, there are exceptions to the rule. And that is definitely the case here. That matte black guitar looks so nice. Yeah, it's a cool bass. I play bass. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful guitar. And I mean, even in this case here, you know, maybe I will... See, to me, that's too harsh of a color change. I would maybe drop it just a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit. And then I would bump up the blacks. Like I said, I usually like to drop the highlights a bit. And kind of go that route. So get the skin tone there, all that kind of stuff. There you go. That's, like I said, I mean, when you don't have to do anything kind of major, maybe a little bit of noise reduction. Take out a little bit of the grain in the background, but that's kind of it. That's how fast I will basically go through stuff. Man, he's just photogenic. Again, it's a kind of a matter of what face you like better. Oops. Again, like I said, I usually use two monitors, but because I am streaming this, I am kind of like throwing stuff up in there. If you do have any questions, again, for those of you who are joining in the stream now, by all means, ask away. I'm more than happy to answer your questions. See, and that'll be too blue. That's why I never rely sort of on the computer itself to make these choices for me. Too orange. And again, my computer's struggling a little bit with the heat, so if we all of a sudden lose contact, it's just because my computer said he's had enough for the day of this kind of stuff. I always kind of, you know, like I said, do the blacks, knock down the highlights a little bit because they're always kind of a little bit harsh in rock photography. And there you go. You know, that will be my keeper. And this is kind of interesting here. You know, this shot, I mean, if I were to make a GIF, is kind of two things. But I mean, these shots are like half a second apart. And you can see how different sort of the lighting condition is. I kind of like these images for different reasons, although that might be problematic. He's very blue and then he's very red. So, I mean, issues here is he's kind of a little too light. And in the next one, there's definitely some hot spots underneath the eyes and stuff where these guys are well exposed in both. Again, you know, across the stage, the lighting is just a little bit crazy in those regards, but I'm not sure which one I like. I kind of like this one for the action. You know, I like the hand position there. I kind of like that he's looking directly at the camera. I like this because you can see his face and it is, you know, in focus, but I think I'm going to go with this. I'm going to see if I can... Yeah, that's just adding more blue, which I don't want. Again, I just kind of quickly go to the presets to kind of get a little bit of where I want to be. I'm going to focus on Ian here and hopes that, you know, we can pull the shadows back out just like that and, you know, kind of capture what's going on. So I think that's a good space to be. You know, there's definition. The guys aren't getting washed out in the background. You know, I might tighten that up just a fraction. I see that's too tight now. I want it a little bit bigger. I think that's where I want to be for that. Again, you know, like you can see across the stage sort of how different the lighting can be. You know, again, this is not terribly complicated stuff. A lot of guys will go into Photoshop, they will mask stuff, they will do all sorts of stuff. All the power to them. I'm not going to spend an hour or two an image. I'm going to spend about 10 to 30 seconds to do what I need to do and make those decisions. And again, you know, because I'm live streaming and talking and all that kind of stuff, I'm not going terribly fast, but generally it's, you know, a decision whether I keep or not, and then go from there. You know, again, you know, fraction of a second makes a kind of a little bit of a difference. This is all very hot. However, it does cut them out nice from the background. You know, so we could just, you know, quickly kind of do that kind of stuff. We can blue that up a little bit, get his colors in a little nicer, darken the black, the highlights up, and that's kind of it. Probably a tiny crop again. Again, I don't like to crop terribly a lot, but there you go. Edited. Oh, I like that too. That's decent as well. Again, you know, when it's not like the perfect focus or the perfect you know, sort of contrast, and you're gonna pull stuff, the big thing is the focal points. And he says, just saying, saw Anthrax and Slayer last night in Edmonton. Oh, nice. Yeah, I mean, great show, like all around. You know, a great lineup, 5 fantastic bands. You know, it made a. You know, it's nice to see those guys. I've photographed them before. You know, it's just nice to see them that one last time. Slayer, I'm talking about here, before they go. So, how was the Edmonton show, Andy? You know, I imagine it was awesome as well. I thought everybody did a great job and kind of, you know. So this one I am actually moving the exposure up because I was a bit dark. But I'm not pushing it so far. I mean, there is a tiny bit of noise which we can take care of. And then we're good. Again, decent shot. I imagine the show was really good. I know the Big Four in Calgary was packed. I imagine the same thing. I think they were sold out Calgary. I'm not sure if they were sold out in Edmonton or not. But I imagine good fun. Okay, so we're on to Lamb of God. And again, you can see sort of the lighting conditions are not necessarily friendly, but as long as we are kind of in the zone there. And this is not, you know, these are hard as well because there was a ton of smoke, which you can see in the background. Nice, you got free tickets. That is awesome, buddy. Free tickets are the best tickets. and I know when I was going in, when I went to pick up my pass and stuff for this, there were the scalpers going around, and they were buying up tickets and selling tickets like you wouldn't be crazy. See, again, you know, lighting terrible. Like, there is nothing you can do to save this image. I would like to think that you could, but it's really not. And that's what I'm saying. Like, sometimes, you know, it's too far gone to kind of do anything. It's just going to become a big mess. I mean, it's okay. It's not great. and I'm really kind of crushing stuff here, I would not use that. I would definitely not use that. Edmonton is definitely hardcore. Ooh. That is not flattering. See, that's the sad thing when the lighting is terrible, that you're not going to get. So this is what... See, he's probably burning there. We might be okay with this one. Yeah, we're in a good spot with this one. There's not a lot of wiggle room with these because of the lighting and the contrast. There's not a lot of light coming from the front, but, you know, we will get there. Woodrow says, hate scalpers. Well, maybe hate in a strong word, but most of them I dislike. Feel the same way about a lot of resellers as well. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of scalpers. I'm not a big fan of people going out and buying tickets for something that they have no intentions of going to watch. I think that does a disservice to the fans. You know, I dislike some of the organization in the sense that a lot of these scalpers now are using bots and getting stuff really, really kind of fast. And shows are selling stuff out. See, again, there's nothing that's going to be able to save this, although he was spitting water there. And again, it's just super, super kind of dark, but that's what we've got. And again, you know, in the case of Lamb of God here, there is little I can do, but nobody's going to have any better images because we were all dealing with the same stuff. But the scalpers, yeah, it's totally bad. It's unfortunate that, you know, they sort of go and do these things and take the tickets out of hands. What I think is even worse is, and what you're alluding to, is the fact that resellers, the legit resellers, which, you know, sometimes with Ticketmaster, they are reselling their own stuff, is also very, very terrible in the sense that they can get tickets before anybody else, or not even put them up for sale, and then they're reselling them for all sorts of stuff. So, I mean, it's a crazy, crazy business, and I think it's terrible in the sense that, you know, it stops a lot of people, you know, coming out to shows. I'm not a big fan of scalpers either. You know, it's just, it's funny. I see them operate because I work down there so much. You know, they will go and they will look and they will find people that are selling tickets because somebody didn't come in their group or all that kind of stuff. They'll have one and then they'll turn around and flip it. And it's funny because you'll watch him. He'll buy it, you know, for less than value. He'll buy it for like a $70 ticket for like 40, 50 bucks, and then he'll turn around and sell it for 100. You know, he'll make $60 and, you know, like 50 feet of line. It's super crazy. It's also not illegal here, which is kind of crazy in itself as well. Again, this is kind of a little bit of a struggling with the light here. I like this image. We're going to just completely undo everything that we just did to get it back to where it was originally. And then we're just going to take the saturation down. We're going to bump up the shadows. And then we're going to get like a little bit more black. We're going to bump the exposure up a tad. We're going to really crush those back. Again, it's going to be grainy, but we're going to get a little bit of noise reduction and all that kind of stuff. And we'll be okay. As I was trying to work with a split lighting, but this is the one that I want. For nothing more. A lot of times I'll hold shift to ensure that Peter being a little bit difficult there. Just going to want to make sure, you'll notice I'll do the horizon line, close it up. I'm definitely going to get that black so he is completely silhouetted. We'll get that. So all I'm doing here is, the reason I'm crushing the highlights a bit, you can see here, I kind of want this a little bit darker on the fringe. That's just sort of my choice artistically a bit. I think that's a cool kind of looking shot. Yeah, I probably will repost later. I don't think there's any sort of danger of anybody's kind of swiping stuff off of video, and if they do take photographs off of video, they're going to be such poor quality. So I most definitely will, Woodrow, post it later. If you don't see it, by all means, give me a thing. It probably means I just put it to unlisted, and I'll by all means send you a link to practice that stuff. So just shoot me a note if you don't see it, if it remains sort of unlisted. But definitely, anything I can do to help, by all means, just ask. More than happy to help, with Photoshop tutorials and Lightroom tutorials and all that kind of stuff. So that, I think, is golden for that one. Now, the lighting was a little bit better here, which is good, because this is going to make my life easier. And it's kind of, like I said, it's that quick when you're good. When you're not in a good zone, it's not. Now, this here, and this is funny. I think I can recover this. I think I can get this kind of where it needs to be. Or maybe I can't. That's close. So this one I might have to take it into Photoshop later and do some stuff, but there we go. Yeah, we're going to get this where we need it to be. Unfortunately, I'm going to cut out this guy. He's not going to make the cut. And you can see I'm coming a long way from where this image started. Not a problem, Woodrow. Anytime, buddy. think that's where we want to be. I think that's where we want to be. All right. So this is unfortunate. Again, the lighting not, you know, he's jumping off the top rack there. You know, we can kind of get some of this image back, but, you know, it's going to be... It's kind of cool, but it's not my favorite shot. All right. Just want to adjust there. Again, that's where we kind of want to be. There you go. I'm going to utilize that online. It's not getting blown up, so otherwise I typically would not do that. And if you notice, I'm just kind of speeding up a little bit here. Again, if you have any questions, throw them in the chat there. There we go. Okay, so this one's problematic. You can see the focus is there, so that is definitely not going to be used at all. There, we're good. Again, these are tough. You know, you can see the amount of smoke and light that are kicking around. Yeah, I do videos as well. It depends what I'm hired to do, Andy. In this case, just photos. A lot of times I will do video stuff as well. If you look around, I did the video for the Path Less Traveled. I did their song Legacy, Seven's Wild Roundabout. I did a rough cut for Imagine Dragons as well, and I've done a rough cut for Ozzy as well, way back with I'm Not Gonna Stop. So I mean, do that. I do concert stuff as well. I'm just currently working on a video for Mindseed as well, their live sort of album stuff. So that is being worked on sort of as we speak as well. I sort of in between timelines. Like I said, this stuff has got to kind of go out pretty quick. I'd been sitting on it for a couple days. So totally urgent, but you know, you got to get your stuff out there at a certain point. This one I think is lost. I mean, I could maybe make something cool out of it, but it's lost. So we'll just make sure that that's gone. So on to Slayer. Slayer I've photographed before. I mean, they always have some good lighting. Kerry King there. He is looking a little bit red, so I will fix that. And that's what I mean. Like if it's close, I'll want to fix it a bit. I mean, if it's completely off, we're going to go a totally different route with it. So I think not a bad shot there. Like I said, Kerry King's easy to photograph. He's a photogenic guy. Kind of iconic what he does. So it's just kind of sad the last time that I'll ever photograph these guys was the other day. Ozzy, yeah. Ozzy's fantastic. I have a, you can't see it, but I've got some signed Ozzy Black Sabbath stuff on the wall, which is super cool. My friend's kid loves him some Imagine Dragons. I think I was told there was a local band here in San Diego that blew up. Yeah, I mean, it's Imagine Dragons are a good bunch of guys. I'm not one for Dutch angles, but that is no good. Believe it or not, I'm not going to use that photo because you can see it's soft. The focus, where is the focus? I don't even know where the focus hit or if it even hit at all. Maybe up in here. It's no good. Done. And that's what I mean. Sometimes when you do stuff early on, you won't do it there. There we're occupying a bit better of a space. And that's the difference the focus makes. You know, that ends up being a better image, whereas if I had gone with the other one, it would have been a little bit different. So we're not going to be able to save color-wise here, so we're going black and white. There you go. It's that fast. Not big on the size, Gary. So here again, you can see you got to know your camera well. You got to adjust fast. Obviously, I was not expecting the lighting to be so bright. I could probably save that. However, I adjusted in camera, and that's what we're going to go with right there. And you'll see it just makes a whole different sort of ball game of how to edit stuff, or how quickly you can edit stuff in comparison when you are close in camera, where you don't have to bring it into Photoshop and do a whole bunch of kind of weird stuff for it. It's just a matter of adjustment and done. And different angle. See, this is again a difference between 1 and 2 shots. Important things will be face focus. Both are in focus. I like that face better. I like the fingers, I think, better. Yeah, I like that. So we'll adjust the color a bit because he's looking a bit red. And that's simple. And again, it's just, you know, sort of picking the best. Like, I got a lot of photos from the show, all of them. But I want the best of the best, you know, sort of with honors. I don't want to put out stuff that is sort of mediocre at the best, you know, kind of thing. I want the best imagery possible. And again, like, that's how fast this kind of stuff's going out. Here... So I don't like this guitars in his face. And again, you know, that's better. Way better. Okay. So good concentration. Good concentration. That will be the image. Boom. Straight to black and white. Like I said, a lot of times I just use these presets to kind of quickly adjust, and then I will completely change everything in there. Again, not really cropping, but just kind of adjusting what I want. I kind of like this as my horizon line. You have to sort of make those choices how you like the look. Otherwise, it looks like they're sliding off a ship to me. But there you go, quick, fast, and easy. And that's kind of it. We'll do one more here. I'm going to start from a different spot. Whites are way too overpowering here. We've got to drop that down. And there you go. That is kind of it, guys. That's pretty much that's how I do my work. So there you go. Hopefully you enjoyed this. You know, an hour and a half is probably a lot longer than I would take to normally go through and select the photographs and all that kind of stuff. This, like I said, was generally a little bit slower than I work. Towards the end of it there, you saw that I was speeding up a fair bit. Generally speaking, to go through that many photos, we've got 168 photos. It would probably take me about, I would say 20 minutes to half an hour, and then I will export and save them and send them off and all that kind of good stuff. So if you're not you know, subscribe to this channel, please do consider hitting the subscribe channel. I will be going live later this afternoon with my regular thing, which is the Daily JD. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. This is something a little bit different. In all honesty, I want to say thanks to Josh Spicer for his happy little mistake. Josh does a lot of editing in Photoshop. He was editing for his live stream, doing all the screens and stuff like that, and I actually watched them and enjoyed it thoroughly. Figured that maybe somebody, you know, that's into photography and all that kind of stuff would like to see what I do for work on a regular basis. So that's how this stream all sort of came about. Thanks Woodrow and Andy for jumping in on the comments and all that kind of good stuff there. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. I appreciate it, guys. You guys are fantastic. Like I said, I'll be back on at 4 p.m. and then probably on in the evening playing Conan Exiles with Lloyd, so you can hear all of Lloyd's unfiltered antics at the best of time. So thanks again, guys. I really do appreciate it. Thanks for dropping in and watching me work, but I'm going to go on to the more boring side of things and answer some emails now and make some phone calls. So I will catch you guys in a few hours if you are here to watch the Daily GD. So see you later.